Good morning. Keeping it real here. This is Linda Stacy. I think I almost recorded this entire thing sideways. Um, anyway, I hope everyone is doing well. It is July 2nd in 2020, and we are still inside of this quarantine. And I haven't been doing a lot of lives lately, so I thought I'd get on this morning and share a little bit in terms of my premise and this is kind of like a thought piece, but also a little bit of an offer. And if anyone has any comments or questions or things that they want to add about this one, I'd love to see that in the comments along the way. It would be fantastic. So again, I'm going to share some thoughts I've been having, especially that were kind of triggered from a conversation that I had with an HR professional, not inside my own organization, but somewhere else. And also going to share a statistic that triggered a nerve with some audiences of mine last spring when I was doing a lot of speaking, because that ties into this. And I also just want to mention that in terms of what I do with living blueprints and my overall being and where I come from is really about exploration and discovery. I don't claim to have all of the answers. I'm figuring out a lot of this too. So much of what I do is about navigating tricky, dynamic situations, often as it relates to human beings in a workplace. Where a lot of things are unspoken, and it's just kind of naughty, yeah, with a Knotty, and I think we don't get enough tools to help us navigate. At least that's been my experience. So I am figuring this out too. I like to set the foundation here that ultimately I am for really awesome radical responsibility on an individual, personal, professional level. And how can we all take more responsibility? I'm talking, how can executives take more responsibility? How can we take more responsibilities in our personal lives and in our professional lives? So that's just kind of a little bit of a premise. But, I talk to a lot of people about workplace stuff. It just comes up in regular conversation, when you're with your friends. But also I talk to people because I'll do little coaching sessions after maybe a live workshop or something like that. And so I hear what's going on for people. And there's a lot of frustration. And I'm sure that maybe you've had the experience where you've had an idea at work and it's fallen on deaf ears. And again, we don't expect like every idea that we have to be like the be all end all and that everyone's going to love it. But there can be this pattern of just a lack of recognition of what the front lines can bring to actual business and where the business is headed. If you've ever seen the show Undercover Boss, you see that they always have the parts with the front lines. The CEO goes undercover and is now at the front lines and seeing all these things that they couldn't see in any other way. And this is a huge source of frustration. It always has been for me from my early days of waiting tables, that things were so obvious to those people who were directly with the customers, directly out there, and that there was this inability, it seemed, for leadership to create a path for it, to be able to hear it. So just this huge frustration that I think happens in the workspace. It's happened to me throughout my career. And I think the front lines are not given the same types of professional development, funds to develop the skills to get better at navigating. So part of what I like to do with Living Blueprints is hopefully reach these people on the front lines that aren't having these resources funneled into them for how to navigate and how to be more clear and expressive when they have things that they can bring up the lines. But also, another one that comes up a lot, some variation of leadership attempting to kind of overhaul something, either maybe a reorg. This one has happened to my sister more than one time where, the company decides it's time to take a look at things, and you have some board member like 15 steps away from what her team actually does, making decisions, critical decisions. It forces a lot of time in analyzing what the roles are, and in the end, they end up with this kind of fragmented grouping, and ultimately it is very frustrating for the front line. And not to say that things don't need to be assessed and looked at over time, but just this is what kills the people at the front lines. This is why 80% of employees are disengaged. Only 1 in 4, this is all Gallup statistics, 1 in 4 employees feels like their opinions matter in the workplace. And I don't think that's cool. I mean, I don't think that's good for business, to be frank. So I feel like a lot of these things aren't talked about. I feel like, we're kind of in a repressed environment in the workplace. I'm going to tell a little story. I've been listening to this podcast, and I'll post who it is in after I'm finished here. But this is a podcast where a psychotherapist goes on, and she talks to people in various workspaces. And a couple of the people that she brought into her office, and this is all like anonymous, were a couple of women that work in a strip club. It was a very interesting conversation to hear about their experiences. But one of the perks that they're both graduate students, so this is the way they're earning like good money to put themselves through school. One of the perks in that environment, the woman was saying that she said, when a customer is inappropriate, I can tell him to his face. Like, there are clear boundaries and they've gone too far, and she can just say, dude, I'm not going to cuss here because I know that's offensive to some people, but that, she'd just say, fuck off. I'm sorry. I did cuss. Anyway, and she said, I've worked in office environments. You can't say that. People cross bounds all the time in offices and corporate spaces, but you can't get it off your chest. There isn't this forum for free expression in corporate, and I think it's another space where we're really brought down. It's a very draining experience. It's a very repressed environment. I don't think it needs to be, though. I'm not quite sure why the repression. I guess there's a lot of nervous energy, but again, I feel like if we all had more skills to be able to set boundaries, different kind of boundaries, and maybe express the you've gone too far in some way that makes sense, that's professional, that doesn't necessarily have to tie in an HR professional, because I think a lot of us have had frustrating experiences with the HR path. To be frank, I respect people in HR, but it's a frustrating route to go. Some of us have experienced retaliation by going through HR. Anyway, so I'm kind of all over the place, but we've all had these experiences, I think, in work where there doesn't seem to be a good path, and then the front lines are placated with, it's business, not personal. Or maybe if you had presented your ideas differently, and that's another one where, yeah, there's some great communication skills experts out there, but again, these resources are not being funneled into the front line so that they really understand how to express their idea differently without being defensive, without setting a business case and all of these things. So those are some of the types of tips and tools I'd like to bring to this space, especially as I explore, as I get better at doing this in my own work, and I'm more than halfway through, I think, my professional career. And I also want to say that I have huge respect for business. I don't want to be like throwing business under the bus, or that all leaders suck or something like that. I mean, my dad is an entrepreneur. He was in the starting his third business when I went to college, which is why I funded my college career. He ended up selling that business several years later in multi-million-dollar type of sale. And I really respect the courage, the risk. I mean, he had nothing when he started. He went into massive debt. Not a lot of people can take that. And if you work for a company or an institution that that has survived the failure rate of businesses that go under, 20% of small businesses will fail in their first year. By the 10th year, 70% of businesses will fail. So there's a huge churn. If you're working for a business that's been around for more than 10 years, I mean, kudos to whoever got that group off the ground and is paying, for the roof over your head and whatever else, you're able to do. So I have huge respect, and building a business can be really awesome. It's a creative effort. I just think that things have get very, very muddled in a lot of environments. People have great ideas, but then the human side of it just gets mucked up. But again, I just wanted to set the tone too, that I have huge respect for what people do in business in terms of what they create, what they allow people who just come in and work the front lines. But anyway, again, going back to this whole, it's business, not personal, isn't it business to know that your division is losing $40,000 a year? I mean, this is one of the shares I've had from someone that I know. She's like, my business unit leader isn't hearing the story that we are losing this amount of money. Like, that's business, right? And isn't it business to understand that, like, how the field reps, this is another group that I worked with, these field reps have got these awesome ideas for how business is being built, because they're out there in the field, they're seeing it, and there's no path that the leadership doesn't want to hear it. I mean, it just seems so crazy to me. I mean, isn't this business? And, you know, when you're an employee on the front lines and you're being told, you know, this is business, not, you know, it's not personal. It's like you're being placated. I think sometimes you end up feeling like the 8-year-old at the dinner table who's not supposed to speak until spoken to. I don't think that this is really what our bosses want from us, but this is sometimes what can happen because it's complicated, it's dynamic. So, you know, why can't they hear when we're bringing up serious cost overturns? You know, what are the things that are getting in the way of that communication? What makes leaders say, you know, you should feel lucky that, I mean, this is like terrible things, I think, to say to employees that I've heard from people in one-on-ones. And do they really prefer that we just kind of do what we're told? There's so many different generations in the workplace. We're going through a lot of change right now. And, you know, more and more we're coming to work wanting meaning, wanting fulfillment. It's flipped in the last century, really, that it used to be really a paycheck, and you got fulfillment and meaning from other parts of your life. There was more of a religious focus, more family, more community, just other places for that. And now we're coming here, and we do have value to offer, and business can and should, in my opinion, be quite a different place. So again, I had said before, 80% of the workplace is disengaged. 1 in 4 can say my opinions actually matter. So if you are a leader, if you have direct reports, are you creating a path to hear what your people say? Are you coming up with ideas in a vacuum? Ask them. If you're working on something new, you know, you can just have a couple of conversations with people to say, what do you think about this? You know, I'm thinking this could be an issue, and I want to develop some solution around it. What are your ideas? You know, there are good ideas on the front lines, and this will kind of bring out a different side of your people if they don't have this opportunity right now. Now, I mentioned at the beginning that I wanted to share a statistic that I had been mentioning last year in some of my speaking, and it really struck a nerve with a lot of audiences. And this is from a guy named Sidney Yoshida, and not a lot has been done since he did this about almost 30 years ago. I have a small idea that I'd like to run some version of this research myself, but I've never done anything like that. So I've kind of put a call out to, I don't know, you know, the universe to help me create some of my own research around this. But anyway, the guy, Sidney Yoshida, executives, this is about problems in the workplace and the iceberg of ignorance. So executives see approximately 4% of problems inside companies. Team managers see about 9% of problems. Team leaders see 74% of problems, and the front lines see 100% of problems. Now, there's a lot to this. Maybe executives only need to see 4% of the problems. Maybe those are the 4% that really need to be addressed. I don't know. There's so many questions behind this research that was not, to what I could see, explored at the time. This guy shared it at a conference. I don't really think there was a paper written about it or anything. I've dug around. I am a research librarian in my regular life, so I've definitely dug to see what else was done about this, and I'm not seeing a heck of a lot. So it's an interesting study, and I'd be interested to go with this. But this really struck a nerve. People get it. People on the front lines get that there are like blaring things that are not being recognized and addressed. So again, I talked about undercover boss, and I really feel like there could be more of a pathway for this. And I feel something has gone wrong as these companies get bigger and bigger. You know, and if anything I'm talking about, you're like, oh yeah, we had that in my company, and this is what we did, and it kind of was a cool solution. I would love to hear that too. I read a lot, but I certainly can't read everything. So all of this is just some of the underlying premise to what I feel is a space for this radical responsibility, really, that individual contributors, the front lines, whatever you want to call, like the quote unquote regular employee, is super responsible, but you need to have the skills to be super responsible. You need to, this doesn't just happen in a vacuum. That's part of what the 9 tips are. You know, the 9 tips in the Optimized You book is about, you know, really taking full responsibility and ownership of the things you can. But I also think that this is about radical integrated responsibility for leadership too. Again, full understanding that there are times when the front lines are are just complaining and in the throes of the blame game. I mean, this is huge, but we all do the blame game, all of us. And there are also times when, you know, leadership can't be fully transparent. Things aren't always known. There's a lot of stuff happening in the marketplace. You're just in the middle of something. It doesn't make sense to talk about it yet because you're not far enough down the line. There's no black and white. So this is a longer, live stream today. I don't anticipate that all of them going forward would be this long, but I do plan to do them on Tuesdays and Thursdays at the same time now that I can at 8 o'clock. I would normally be in the middle of a commute right now. But just this space is about exploring some tactics so that, you know, we can kind of be honest about what's happening at work and also have some skills for executing better. And all of this translates into our personal life too. I'm all about fully integrated, radically responsible humans so that we can it actually leads to more freedom. That's really what this is all about. It's all about more freedom and more space for joy. And that brings us in all places of our lives. I heard someone describe their work as, you know, like they felt like they were sacrificing their soul. Now that is an extreme, but that exists. And I'm really working to bring this kind of on the other side of the spectrum. So that is just kind of setting a tone here for kind of relaunching, if you want to call that, my live streams and calling this work dope. I don't know if people are familiar, you know, dope can mean a lot of things, so you can look it up in an Urban Dictionary, but I thought all of them kind of applied and it was kind of a fun thing to call this. And if folks don't already have it, I'm going to post the link to the 9 tips that it's, so they made up the premise of the book, Optimized You, these 9 tips, but I also have them summarized in a one-sheeter that I'm going to share in the comments, because I think that they're just a small step to, you know, taking ownership, because I really do feel that the ownership and it all is what leads to increased freedom and fulfillment and the things that we hope for in life and the ways that we can grow in life. And I hope that everyone has an awesome 4th of July weekend, even though it's probably going to be a little bit different this year, and a great Thursday and great work life and home life. And it's all together now for real. I mean, I always thought they were integrated, but now it's like, it's really integrated. All right. Have a great one. Bye-bye.